In order to understand the psychology or psychosis of sheep behavior in the church, we must first understand why black men in general have an aversion to this type of thinking process, and what is the actual psychosocial schematics of the institution known as the church in general. Basic church organization is traditionally outlined and defined as follows. The first and most important part of the church's structure has to do with the symbolic figure of a head shepherd referred to in Christianity as Jesus Christ. Now, this symbolism that portrays Jesus Christ as the good shepherd presiding over his sheep is the binding glue that joins and holds every member of the church organization together into one cohesive mindset. Now, underneath the head shepherd, there are groups of under-shepherds, overseers, bishops, or pastors who have a more direct and physical influence over the lay members of the church on a day-to-day basis. Now, these people are considered the spiritual leaders of the church. This group of leaders is usually made up of individuals who have dedicated their livelihoods to ministry and others who do not make a living elsewhere. Their primary focus and duty is to oversee and guide the lay members of the church by reinforcing the doctrine of Christianity on every level within the church matrix. However, if you noticed in the description of the head leadership of the church, the word shepherd is used quite often to describe the role that religious leaders play within the scheme of church organization. Now, it is this shepherd and sheep relationship idea that is promoted in the church that is used to get the lay members in Christianity to conform to its doctrine. This is the psychological component of Christianity that I will address as it pertains to the natural state of black male psychology. It is my position that the Christian idea, thought, or expectation that a man, not to mention a black man, should liken and lower himself to the level of a sheep, one of the dumbest animals on the planet, with an IQ lower than a pig, strikes at the very root of black manhood and explains in part why black men refuse to go to church. Now, we must ask ourselves, why should a man, or a living human being, for that matter, be required to consider it his or her religious obligation and duty to carry himself in a sheep-like manner just to be a part of a church organization? According to a passage in the Christian Bible, Isaiah 53:7 to be exact, it describes the true purpose and nature of sheep. It states,
He was oppressed, and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is dumb, so he opened not his mouth.
Now you see, the true purpose of a sheep is to be slaughtered and eaten or sheared for her wool. Pastors of churches consider their lay members his flock. Likewise, a group of sheep are also called a flock. All sheep have a tendency to congregate close to other members of the flock. Likewise, a local group of church people is referred to in Christianity as a congregation. Sheep are also extremely food-oriented. Those who are moving sheep or manipulating sheep may exploit this behavior by leading sheep with buckets of feed. Likewise, in most churches, food is associated and served with nearly every occasion imaginable to the human mind. Food and church has become mutually exclusive in the world of Christianity. So you see, the Christian idea of thinking of oneself as a sheep comes from the agrarian practice of actually raising sheep. This process of raising and breeding domestic sheep is called sheep husbandry. Sheep farming is primarily based on raising young sheep called lambs for meat, or raising sheep for wool. Sheep may also be raised for milk. So you see, the entire purpose of a sheep's life or sheep's existence is to be exploited by its master. Therefore, in order to understand why black men don't go to church, we must comprehend the true meaning of the sheep philosophy promoted by the church. First of all, one of the obvious reasons you don't see a lot of men in church is because the idea of having too many men in the church conflicts with the very practice and process of sheep husbandry. If you would actually take a time to visit a real sheep farm, one of the first things that you will notice is that there are very few male sheep called lamb. The female sheep in the flock are far more numerous than the males. The same way the female members of a church congregation grossly outnumber the men at any given church. The reason for this numerical discrepancy between male and female sheep is in fact by design, you see, because a sheep farmer is always concerned with keeping the correct ratio of male to female sheep. If you do happen to see multiple male sheep within a flock, most of the males have been castrated. Now, this need for castration is based on the management of the farm system, because male lambs sold for grazing are castrated in order to manage their aggressiveness and to control the behavior and mating habits of the female sheep. It is the female sheep, or the female church member, if you will, that produces more of what the shepherd needs for his personal sustenance. Therefore, it is her meat and milk that is valued above all else within the system of shepherding sheep. You see, too many male sheep in the flock, or too many uncastrated men in the church, will make it almost impossible to control the female sheep, or the female church member, because her desire to mate is stronger than her desire to be herded. This is why you see more single black women, a handful of castrated gay males, and no strong black men in the church other than the pastor. To put it simply, the church psychology of thinking of oneself as a sheep simply does not resonate with black manhood, because black men do not view themselves as weak, lowly, or available for exploitation. Black men at their very lowest have never been sheep in any way. From childhood, black boys are aggressive and dominant in nature, both physically and mentally. The only thing that's being separated is black men and black women, the same way sheep farmers control and separate male and female sheep. The only difference is the church demands that you call yourself a sheep and uses religion to back it up. Black men don't go to church because most black men are not sheep, but men, plain and simple. Most black men are not easily led, and they demand respect as men even when they follow. At the end of the day, there is no real woman alive that wants a sheep for a husband. Peace.
Well, I'm at the Bender's farm today with Farmer Bender, and I'm out here learning about sheep. I'm a pastor, and the word pastor literally means shepherd, and so I'm learning about sheep because the Bible tells us that people are like sheep. And that has a lot to do with the message I'm going to be sharing today, so open up your heart. I believe that God's going to be speaking to you about sheep and people. You and me, we're like this.
I don't want to be a hypocrite. Yeah, I just want to be a sheep. Ba, 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 ba. I just want to be a sheep. Ba, 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 ba. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. I just want to be a sheep.